Hey everyone, in this video we're going to be jumping into the Dash framework. These are the fundamental building blocks that you're going to be using to build and scale and design your interactive dashboards and applications as you go forward to building them out. So this is a cool video because I'm going to kind of dive into Dash core components, and we're going to be showing off this interactive tutorial that I designed specifically to highlight specific use cases where DCC could be a useful tool to help you build and innovate with. So with that, let's kind of just jump into that starting with a loading overlay. But the loading overlay is a great indicator that removes friction through your application, and it notifies the user that, hey, hold up, we are processing something. So as we work with AI and as our requests and API endpoints become more demanding, a loading overlay is a good tool to have in your arsenal when building your applications. So just to kind of show you how this works, I have a few different options right here, and you could get to this application in the links in the description down below, and you can kind of explore this at your own pace. But basically what it is it's an interactive tutorial where I could select a range of different options for how do I want the loading overlay to look. For example, let's just say the cube, and then if I wanted to do a rainbow effect, and if I start it, you'll see that it changes color and it shows this loading animation. So if I go back to like the circle, this is something that we're more accustomed to, but this is one that I have created. I can change it and do full screen, and as you can see, it makes the loading overlay full screen. And yes, you could even provide a custom loading overlay. So that's like an image of a slug that I created that I thought was pretty cool. So with that, there are so many other core components to the Dash framework. Jumping quickly into upload and download, interacting and trying to transfer files or media between the application and the end user is really simple to set up and do within the Dash framework. The way that you do that is through DCC upload and DCC download. So for example, the upload one would be this one right here, where I can upload a CSV, and as you can see, it will read the CSV and it will tell me how many rows and columns are in it and what are the column names within the CSV. So this is all done through this example, which kind of gives you an indication of how this is all structured and designed. But basically every single example has code associated with it to help you understand how to set this up. So with this, we have DCC upload, and this has an ID associated with it, and then with that ID it will be associated with the callback and the input. So whenever this ID has an input or something happens or something is uploaded to the component, then this callback is triggered because that's the input state, and then this function is ran, which basically encodes it into base64 and then breaks down the contents of the file, which we saw with. So with that, it's a really powerful and useful tool, and you can also extend this to provide a button which will automatically download something for you. So as you can see, that's amazing. And it's so easy to do and set up. This is a few lines of code. So yeah, with that, let's do the confirm dialog. This is an interesting one that I don't think most people realize, but as you can see, it's basically two buttons. As I click on the increment, it will add to the count. And if I try to delete the count, then what this DCC confirm dialog provider does is it creates this modal, which basically gives me this warning message saying that once I delete it, it will not be undone. So if I say yes, it's going to set the count to 0. So it's a confirmation request that is baked in and built into the Dash framework and DCC. So with that, let's go to the graph and drop down. So For example, you have a bunch of different inputs and they can interact with other components. You can interact with graphs, it could trigger events to change the data. This is the real powerful nature of the Dash framework. But with that, as you can see here, I have created this little example, which is this selector, which allows me to go in between different options, and it changes the revenue or the sales, the graph that is shown with the selection of the drop down. So with that, we can see how the drop down is set up, and then we can also see how the callback uses it to dynamically generate the figure in the Go object. So with that, let's dive into location. Thing that a lot of people don't really think about, but it's a really powerful tool, is the navigation of your application. As you subdivide your application, there's a lot of ways that you can use the URL directly to benefit your application stack or to give context or a bunch of other different things. So what this DCC location does is it allows you to quickly navigate to a specific location within the application through an action. So in this example, you can see that I have a DCC location with an ID URL, and I am not refreshing that. So with that, I have these two DCC links for page 1, page 2, and then I have this URL and then page name, and then the output is the page content. So with that, what we're having here is going to be, this is the page content. Whenever this is changed, it also changes at top. You can look at the URL, but that is also changing. So that's how this is done and how it works. So dashboards with multiple views and shareable URLs and browser history navigation, SEO. That's a real reason why you would want to spend time and invest in your DCC location and how your path routes. Let's kind of talk about the DCC store, a storage mechanism that doesn't require you having a whole Postgres engine set up, and it's not really used to store files, and is more just for text or JSON, or I'll show you the use cases for it. But there are 3 different configurations to using DCC store. So you have memory, you have local, and you have session. So these are the 3 options, and in this I will be explaining the best use cases for which one. So with that, let's kind of just dive into the DCC store memory. This is client-side data storage. This holds data in the browser's memory, and it persists only while the page is open. Refreshing, and it's gone. So the use cases is intermediate calculation results to callback passing. This is the real reason why you'd want to use DCC store. I could say, for example, hello world within the input, and I could save that to memory, and then it will be saved to memory. So with that, it also saves the amount of times that I have saved, and it's added to the count. So 1, 2, 3, bam, it got added. So with that, there is code which shows how to set this up, but it's just a simple DCC store. Give it an ID. There is a prop storage type, and that's where you could pass through if it's going to be using memory or you're going to do local or session storage. So you get to define that within the storage type, and then with that you have these callbacks which kind of are used to save the data to the store and then retrieve it from the store. So that's kind of the way that these DCC stores work. You have to save to memory and then display to the output that you are trying to set up. So with that, that's a good use case, and as we go on further, I think that this is a very good use case, but this is for local. So what client-side data storage is best used for, and the example that I created was one where you could change the color scheme of the application. So if you click on light mode and if you save it to your preference, then it will allow you to turn the application in its light mode form. Where if you go into dark mode and then if you save to your preference, then it will go into dark mode. So with that, this is data that survives the page's refresh, and the browser restart. And it's used for themes or data that should persist across visits. Jump back into dark mode because it's my favorite, and we will go into the DCC store and showcase the session. So the session is great for client-side data storage, data during the browser tab's lifetime, but when the tab is closed, then the data is lost. But this is good for somebody that is shopping on a site, for example. So as they add, for example, a laptop, an iPhone, and all of these items to their shopping cart, and let's just say that they go to another page, they come back, it's still there, you know what I mean? So you're able to jump in between different pages and it isn't lost. But if I was to refresh the actual page, and if I went to the session, you'll see that it is also still there. So, but on the restart of the application, that is where, or the redeployment of your application, that's where you would lose, or the user would lose their session storage. So with that, there are limitations to it. It isn't best practice for everything, but for shopping carts, multi-step forms, wizards, maybe some AI-specific reasons, tab-specific temporary storage, this is a great reason to look into DCC store using the sessions. And it's basically set up the same way, where you have a callback that stores the data, and then you have a callback that displays the data. And you're just using that DCC store with the storage type sessions. And then for the data, you can define a dictionary that will store the actual data. So that's how you could set up a DCC store for sessions. So with that, let's go into dependent inputs. So this one, for example, I don't have access to click on state, province, city. I could still type that out, but if I click on Canada, for example, then I get a list of options that become available. And then US, for example, it changes those options. And with that, it created this great little example of how to set this up. But these are the callbacks that I used in this use case, and this is what it is able to do. So lastly, example number 10, the slider. I think that the slider is very useful, and just being able to filter down selections. So as I go about discounts and seeing what is available and what isn't, you'll see that the filtered products changes. And the way that I just kind of set this up is I just created 2 DCC sliders and a DCC range slider. And within that, you give it an ID, a min, max, and its step. And you set values, and you can define the markers, and you can connect those to a callback, which provide a action. So as these go into a specific value range, then what you're doing is you're looking at this ID and the input, and then you are creating some logic within the callback, and then you are designing where you want the output to be. So it could be a graph. It could be, for this example, just filtering products. But a range slider and a slider in general is very useful. And DCC has a great one baked into it. So with that, let me know which one is your favorite. Which DCC component do you most use, and are you most thankful for existing? And how do you use them? You know what I mean? I'm always interested to see how other people are building and innovating with these tools. But with that, thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, and as always, build something amazing.